I want to take a moment to remember Michel Trachtenberg and Gene Hackman, who both died yesterday. Nobody knows this, that me and Michelle were really good friends for a while in her younger days, during her Buffy days, actually. Very, very close. And I was very protective of her because she was very young. She was a child star in the industry, and I knew what goes on and what still goes on in the entertainment industry today. I found out with the rest of the world what had happened to her on the set of Buffy. I was as horrified and as disgusted as everybody else. And I was a little bit hurt that Michelle didn't tell me what was going on at the time. But that was Michelle for you. She thought about everybody else before herself. She knew what I would do if I knew at the time what was happening to her. She didn't do it to protect you know who. She did it to protect me. I will never forget your warm smile and your warm soul. You truly were a goddess amongst us. You were very, very special. You died at the age of 39, gone too soon, but you suffered so much, and at least finally you're at peace. Now let's talk about Gene Hackman for a little bit. I first saw Gene, of course, like a great many of other people of my generation, playing Lex Luthor in Superman 1978. He would go on to play the character in Superman 2, but he didn't shoot any extra scenes for Superman 2 when Dick Lester took over from Dick Donner out of loyalty to Dick Donner. So they had to use what they'd already shot, what Dick had already shot of Gene Hackman. He was also in the ill-fated Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which he was also tremendous in. No matter what people say, Gene Hackman was an outstanding Lex Luthor. And, you know, he was the right Lex for the right era. That's how villains were done back then. And he was perfect. It was a big deal for Gene Hackman. He was a huge actor when he was announced to play Lex Luthor, right? And at first he only thought of Superman as a cartoon character, but as he spoke to Dick Donner, he thought, I could really make this Lex something special. I also loved him in No Way Out with Kevin Costner, as he's playing this big senator or ambassador, and he basically he kills this mistress he's with, played by the brilliant enigmatic Sean Young. It's such a great performance. Gene Hackman, who died yesterday. The two people I've just mentioned sum up the quality of old Hollywood and the people who worked in old Hollywood compared to the people who work in New Hollywood. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to, I don't even know what day it is actually. I think it's Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday. Thursday's edition of the DCU Daily. Very emotional talking about Michelle there. She meant a hell of a lot to me. And to the people who didn't know her, she's everything you imagined she was. Anyway, I want to talk about an update of Superman test screenings because it's something James Gunn spoke about during the DC Studios press event. It's something I missed out on talking about the other day. Now, the friendly sites and accounts, social media accounts to James Gunn are claiming that the Superman test screenings were very, very positive. But they told us that about the Flash movie, and look what a bunch of crap that movie was. I'll tell you why people like that test screening, because I saw a test screening of the Flash, as some of you may know, because they showed us the good version. There's a better version of the Flash movie. There's a better version of Wonder Woman 84. We've discussed this on my YouTube many times. You may be watching me on YouTube, you may be watching me on Instagram. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But there was a better version of the Flash movie. That's why they were saying test screenings were so positive. Now, I'm going to read you what James Gunn has said about test screenings, because I think it's very self-explanatory that maybe the test screenings haven't gone as well as some of the shills are telling us they have. We've done screenings. We've done real screenings. Definitely learning stuff all the time. Definitely editing and making little changes. You know, we might shoot a couple, little tiny things. I used to be kind of against it because, you know, you don't want to have to shoot again. It's a pain in the ass. But as time has gone on and I've made more movies, I really like being able to say, you know what, I wish I had a shot that fist hitting that. And so I do tend to go back and pick that kind of stuff up. So it wouldn't be anything major, but those kind of things, yeah, I'll cover you a couple more things like that. So as I say, this is very, very interesting, everyone, and I tell you why. Now let's go back to what he says, because this is why I think the screenings, and he says he's done many, many screenings, haven't been that positive, and that's why. He's saying that he's gone back into editing, changing a few things. If the screenings were positive, he wouldn't have gone back to the editing to change these things. He's going to go back and change a few other things. He says small things, not big things. If I were you, son, I would go back and change the flying. Stop making David have his hands down by his side. That's why the flying and the face looks so fake, because the body shape isn't good. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't make the face look good. Now, you claim the face hasn't been AI'd, hasn't been CGI'd. That's a natural shot, right? So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but that's not how you should do flying. And also, a man can't fly like a jet, spin around like a jet. It's an interesting idea, but once you saw it didn't work, you should have knocked it on the head. It's as simple as that. That's what I'd go back and change. I don't know about the rest of your movie. Now, all that matters now, at the end of the day, is July the 11th and how this movie is. If it's good, if it's successful. As a Superman fan, of course, I want it to be very successful, but everything is weighing on this movie. Now, we know that, for example, the queer director is the director of Queer, which is a movie, before, you know, people misunderstand me, starring Daniel Craig, directed by a guy called Luca. His surname, I keep on killing it, so let's just call him Luca. It is Luca, isn't it? Now, there were rumours, there were solid reports that Daniel Craig was playing Sergeant Rock in this movie. And apparently he rejected playing this role. And they looked at another actor, is it Jeremy Allen White, I think that's his name, and he's turned it down apparently as well. So it's looking like people don't want to play Sergeant Rock. So it's a bit of a problem. So he's got lots of problems going on in the other stuff, cancelled projects. He's complained about regrets bringing in certain writers. It's interesting with James. Sometimes he's very economical with the truth, and he's been caught out before, but sometimes he's overly too honest. And to say you've regret some of the writers you brought in, it's kind of thing, you think it, but you don't say it. Now listen, I understand the creative process and the process of pitching a script and a story. Sometimes you're going to bring in a bad fit for the project or for the streaming show. It's natural. These things happen. It's not a big shock to hear that he's brought in some bad writers. But this is the kind of thing he doesn't want to tell you. I know for a fact that the quality of writers in Hollywood today isn't as strong as it was in the old days. You know, we can go back to the 30s, right up to the early noughties. The quality isn't there because most of these people are activists and they're not storytellers and they don't care about the art form. And you're bringing them on and they've got these crazy ideas and these, you know, basically the quality of writers isn't there. When you think about the kind of writers we had on 24 or Prison Break, let's look at Smallville. Our Miles had 4 head writers on that show. They had Kelly Salders and Brian Peterson, and they had Todd Slavkin and Darren Swimmer. And they were top draw writers for a show on the WB and then the CW. These were top draw writers. And of course, Todd and Darren, Kelly and Brian went to run season 8 when Our Miles left Smallville. And then Kelly and Brian totally ran the show from seasons 9 and 10. And even though I've always said the final 3 seasons are not as strong, for example, as the first three, I think they did an amicable job, on the final three seasons of Smallville. Strong writers, and we don't have those type of writers in Hollywood anymore. But I think just reading this, that he is looking to make some changes, tells me that those test screenings haven't been that great. Even though I've been to many test screenings before, I'm not a big fan of them. I don't think, because what happens is you're screening them for people, right? But a film, art is subjective. So you're never really going to know, right? If someone, if 50 people say to you, nah, I don't like that, change that. I think as a creative, as a writer-director, you've got to have an instinct. I have an instinct, even when I'm doing my plays. When I'm writing my original plays for my amateur dramatic society and me to perform, right, and I'm directing these plays as well, I have a gut instinct. If I do something, if I write something, right, or, whatever, I know. I think, Mick, that's not going to work. It's an idea, and when you're passionate about a bad idea, it's even worse, but you've got to step outside of yourself and say, this isn't going to work. So if I'd come up, for example, with Superman twisting around like a jet, when I saw it with the naked eye, I would have said, I really wanted to do that. It's something I wanted to brag about. It's something like groundbreaking, but it doesn't work. And we can all tell that spin doesn't work. Because the thing is, all you have to do is see how Christopher Reeve flies. And if you can mimic that, I don't want to see the same kind of movies as we did back in, with the Christopher Reeve movies. I want new takes on Superman. But I think when you look at how Reeve flew, that's exactly how everyone should be flying. And if you want to put a new spin to that flying, if you want to visually make it look in different ways, in modern ways, that's cool. But the body shape and body language of Reeve as he flew is top drawer, and nobody has flew better. Not just as Superman, but on the screen. And I think if you do that, that's going to work. But, that's my opinion. So I don't think these test screenings are going well. And we know this is a movie where everything is riding on it. Now, apparently David Zaslav is not happy with the co-CEOs of WB Pictures, Warner Brothers Pictures. He's blaming them for the failure of Joker, Folie à Deux, Joker 2. He's blaming them, for spending too much money. But Joker, Folie à Deux was green-lit before Adby and DeLuca took over. But, the problem is, you could say what they should have been reining Phillips in. But the problem is, when you're dealing with someone like Todd Phillips, he ain't going to listen to you. I mean, he spoke to them. He wouldn't speak to James Gunn, by the way. He came out and said that much publicly. But yeah, there's some directors that are very difficult to handle, and you can't control them at all. And as a studio, you're spending the money on these people's vision. They should at least listen to you, right? That's very important. Yeah, it's your vision, it's your idea, it's your movie, it's your art, but you're spending other people's money. And you've always got to respect that. As far as I'm concerned, I believe, as a creative myself, I believe in, artistic integrity, but you can't just do whatever the hell you want. That's how problems begin. You've got to be a collaborator. You've got to listen to the people who are funding your project at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't think these test screenings have gone well. And look, I've got an idea what this movie is. And as I've said from the beginning, the teaser trailer finally excited me for this movie. I wish I never saw that TV spot with the bad flying, because that really put me off. Some of the other marketing, some of the other public relation, the PR stunts, the selfie with Snyder, I could have done without that, because I'm sniffing, I'm smelling a lot of desperation here. I said it from the very beginning. This doesn't just have to be the best comic book movie ever made, because it does. This is the position that they are in. This movie has to bring in as much money as Man of Steel. If this makes even a nickel less than Man of Steel, then the detractors are going to come after Gunn, come after WBD. They need to make at least that, right? But then people will say, well, Look, your movie made as much as Man of Steel. Why do you get to greenlight all these movies and Zack was driven out? You know, people will be saying that too. So July the 11th is when everything will be decided.